Homelessness is increasing at an alarming rate in the city of Halifax. I'm going to show you some data now. This recent data collected by the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia shows the number of people experiencing homelessness in the city nearly doubled between 2022 and 2024. For a closer look at this crisis, I'm joined by Michael Kaplan, Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
How do we reach this point where the number of people experiencing homelessness has nearly doubled in those 2 years?
In the last couple of years, I think we've seen an acceleration of the people experiencing homelessness due to some systemic issues. I think, the housing crisis affects people with lower incomes more pronounced. And I think the symptoms of the ongoing housing crisis, which has roots back in the 90s, right? We need to remember the federal government was the biggest engine of building affordable housing in our country up until the 90s. All stripes of political party up until that point have had power either through a power sharing arrangement or others. And they just haven't made that level of investment at a federal level. They've delegated that authority to municipalities and provinces. But we still haven't seen the type of investment in affordable housing. So homelessness is really a symptom of the broader housing crisis that many Canadians are facing when it comes to affordability. And so these numbers they recognize, those of us that are most vulnerable are having a much, much harder time and are unfortunately falling through the social safety net that we all would hope to depend on if we were in a similar place.
What are some of the other concerning trends that are highlighted in this report?
Yeah, so, one is how much more it has increased in Halifax. So between the two counts in 2022 and 2024, we've seen an increase of 93% in Halifax, whereas the national average is around 79%. That's significant, I think, for a small center like Halifax, and I think it's impacting us substantially. We've also seen people have experienced homelessness longer. So in 2022, less than a quarter of the people had experienced chronic homelessness, whereas now we're looking at about 3 of every 4 of the people that are experiencing homelessness are in a chronic state. We want homelessness to be rare, brief, and non-recurring. But what we're seeing is it's becoming more common, it's taking longer, and those that are experiencing it are having a harder time keeping housing once they get it. We've also seen Indigenous and African Nova Scotians represented at both 16 and 19% of the population, or the people we talk to, when they're less than 4 and 7% of our population here in HRM. So that's also significant.
And the report also found most people experiencing homelessness are men. In fact, 65% of respondents were men. Most between the ages, of 30 and 49. What do you make of this?
I think, the system is designed to help the most vulnerable. And I think there's a lot of resources and a lot of organizations and places that focus on women, children, people who are non-binary. There's some organizations that focus around seniors. Unfortunately, if you are a white man in Canada and you experience homelessness, there's not a unique organization for you. So you're left with the bigger organizations who are also overwhelmed, also serving kind of the more diverse or the more racialized or folks that need, have a higher priority in the sense of where resources go. So the indication of men is really an indication of single men who fall into poverty or have an income issue, lose their job, lose their housing, are more likely to fall into homelessness as well, because there's less supports there than there would be for women, children, individuals who come from Indigenous or African Nova Scotian communities as well.
And what about people, sleeping in rough or unsafe settings? What did we learn?
So in Nova Scotia, we saw about the same amount of people between the two counts experiencing unsheltered homelessness, or as you described it, as sleeping rough. And I think, that's a testament to there is things that are being done, right? In Nova Scotia, we've seen the provincial government and the municipality here in Halifax make investments on, what we might call warehousing, not housing, indoor options for folks, but it's still not housing, right? A shelter isn't housing. Hotel rooms or motel rooms that were used during COVID and some persist in some instances, that's not housing, right? That doesn't end the instance of homelessness. It's still a precarious housing situation. And we've also seen governments in our region make a significant investment in housing. So we're not saying nothing's been done. It's just we still haven't done enough, right? So we're advocating for more.
Yeah, so what more needs to be done? What are the long-term solutions here, Michael?
Yeah, the long-term solution is continued investment in social housing. So our organization, AHANS, aside from doing the work around trying to reduce homelessness in our community, is also an organization that builds maintains and manages a portfolio of affordable housing. And there's a number of organizations in Atlantic Canada that do that work. So we really want to advocate both to the federal, provincial, and municipal governments to invest in more affordable housing. In Canada, we are well below the OECD average of 7% of what we call community housing, or housing that's not in the hands of the private sector or the hands of government. It's in the hands of the community, nonprofits, co-ops, and other charities. So we would advocate to get Canada up to that, at least that 7% OECD average, but really beyond that, 20%. If 20% of our housing stock, you look at jurisdictions in Europe where 20% of the housing stock is owned and operated by the community, the homelessness numbers are also much lower, because there's housing that is meant to help those that are most vulnerable, and it's a complete community for those folks. So that's what we would really advocate is for federal, municipal, and provincial investment to bring us up to at least the OECD average of 7%. In Nova Scotia, we're less than 3%. In other jurisdictions in Canada, it could be higher and lower, but we're still much behind our peers around the world. And so Canadians really need to see more of that type of housing if we're really going to end
long-term solution.
Exactly.
Well, Michael Kaplan, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your thoughts on this.
Great to chat with you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.